All right. We know you're here to celebrate and love on David Aurelio. When David asked me to speak on his last Sunday, I was honored and humbled. I immediately had a topic in mind that I wanted to talk about. Then later, when David asked me for my talk title, "Who are God's Teachers?" popped into my mind. So today we're going to explore who are God's teachers and why it is important to explore that question. Would your list of God's teachers include reverends, practitioners, priests, rabbis, mystics, shamans? What if we discovered that God's teachers is anyone who becomes one? We could be calling Ellen Rabbi Green. Freddie could be a mystic, while Baji could choose to be a shaman. But before we explore God's teachers, let's explore our experience with traditional teaching and teachers. Some of our childhood memories may center around teachers and school. I bet you we can all probably recall a teacher that had a positive or negative impact on us, and the effect that that had in terms of our excitement or trepidation about school and learning. And we know that could change from year to year and class to class. In my 18 years in education, I've seen the role of the teacher change. When I first entered the field of education, the teacher viewed their primary responsibility to be the content expert imparting knowledge to the learner. Most of you can envision the classroom of the past. You walk through the door and you are confronted with the teacher's desk in the center of the room. Chalkboards in my day, and some of yours, or whiteboards on the wall behind the teacher. Windows lined the far wall away from the door you entered, and they stretched from the top of the radiators to the ceiling. And desks were neatly arranged, and they covered the floor. That classroom that most of us are familiar with, in today's teaching, that teacher would be called a sage on the stage. Now, classrooms have evolved and they're more learner-centered today. In a learner-centered classroom, learners are doing most of the talking. There's space in the classroom for collaborative and individual work, and there's a greater sense of joy and purpose. Yet the classroom is still based on a hierarchy of having a teacher with authority and control over how they're going to facilitate the learning environment. In the classroom of the past, or today's classroom, the perception is that the teacher and learner are separate. When we are God's teachers, I have come to believe that there is no separation between the teacher and the learner. Non-dualistic thinking starts with the intention to see our interest as one with others. Our philosophy is based on the principle of oneness. So what gets in the way of making a conscious choice to see our interest as one? Judgments about people's personality, morals, or competence. Hostility toward people who have different opinions and or look different. Blaming others rather than accepting responsibility. Refusing to forgive for what went wrong or what we thought was done to us. The following is a personal story that I want to share that illustrates how dualistic thinking can rob us of everyday miracles. This is a story about two people who took on the interchangeable roles of teacher-learner and learner-teacher. In the year 2000, Deb, after 22 years of teaching and coaching at Marist School, where she had 1 of everything, 2 of most, and 3 of some, left to start and head the athletic department at Atlanta Girls' School. What she found was a situation where there were no facilities, no fields, no equipment, and unlike Marist, no one was hired to coach. In 2001, Lorri left her corporate job looking for a place to start her dream of teaching and coaching, and was fortunate to land an interview at Atlanta Girls' School. On that interview day, Lorri arrived early to the Buckhead Baptist Church for her appointment. At the top of the stairs, where Atlanta Girls' School was located, the principal greeted Lorri. The principal said, "I will call Deb and let her know you're here." Lorri said, "No, just tell me where she is. I will find her." Deb could hear Lorri make her way down the hall to her office. Click, 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 click. Lorri appeared in her $1,500 suit, heels, stockings, the whole shebang. I know that's hard to believe. Okay. But that's how Lorri appeared. Because after all, she was going to show everyone who she was that she came in contact with that day. Deb greeted her warmly. They sat down. Deb recalls how Lorri crossed her legs, literally throwing one over the other, and proceeded to recite her accomplishments. Unimpressed, Deb escorted Lorri to the exit and then stopped to tell the principal that she didn't think this was going to work. She told the principal, after all, Lori's ego took up the whole office, and she didn't think there would be room for anyone else. The principal listened to Deb, and then she said, "Well, she comes cheap." Deb needed help, so she swallowed her judgments and gave Lorri a chance. And I began the process of hanging up my ego along with my business attire. Why do I share that story? Deb and I got caught up and absorbed by our ego. Deb's ego revealed itself in her judgments about me and her knowing that she was never going to allow me room to help her. My ego revealed itself in thinking that since I had a successful business career, I could come in and teach these teachers a few things. Our ego, or as we now call it, our specialness, was making judgments about the other's personality, morals, and competence. There were numerous limitations we were faced with at the girls' school, but our determination and our commitment to give the girls an authentic and complete experience made us quickly realize that our interests were one and not separate as we thought on that interview day. And for 18 years, we've embraced the teacher-learner and learner-teacher dance, and I know we'll do that for many years to come. There is no one from whom a teacher cannot learn, and there is no one they cannot teach. You've heard this: when a teacher is ready to teach, the learner or the opportunity will present itself. And also, when the learner is ready to learn, the opportunity or the teacher will present itself. In all situations, teaching and learning occur. There is a difference in how we grow in teaching-learning relationships depending on what is at the center of the relationship. Is it egocentric or God-centric? And even when we make a conscious effort to be God-centered, it isn't always easy. Try teaching someone who is not getting something that you find incredibly easy. You see it so clearly, but it's not getting through. And how much does the learner actually absorb when their opinion of themselves is less than? If we are in a relationship coming from a place of emptiness, it will deprive us of the connection that enables each of us to grow in consciousness. If we are in a relationship that comes from love, it enhances not only the learning, but also the opportunity for spiritual growth. I believe it is of utmost importance at all times to call on a higher power to guide our daily interactions. We stand to gain so much more. You see, when the teacher and learner are one, it is because of the presence of the divine within us. It is our connection to Source that allows us to access the wisdom and knowledge within us. So just like the concept of giving and receiving represents a dynamic exchange of energy, so does teaching and learning. So back to the question, who are God's teachers? I don't think there is any better example of God's teachers than children. We often say that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I think when we observe children, we are observing spiritual beings learning to be human. When we observe children, our souls are reminded that there is divinity within us and that we came forth from God. I feel blessed to have 3 grandnephews and a grandniece. They are too young to have been schooled in any special knowledge. Yet when I observe them, I learn from their connection and wisdom. I've watched them approach life with complete trust and love. When on outings and they see other children, they often run to hug them. Children see no differences and feel no separation. They see the world through God's eyes and teach us the same. There's a story I once heard of a 5-year-old whose mommy had just given birth to a new baby. The little boy kept asking to spend some alone time with his new sister. When his parents asked him why he wanted to spend some alone time with a new baby, he said, "I needed it because I was starting to forget God." God is in everything and everyone in creation. Being in nature provides us a sense of peace that can't help but teach us about the presence of God and remind us that God is in all things. Smelling the fragrance of a rose, experiencing the glory of a sunset, being greeted in the morning by a bird song, all brings our connection to God front and center. And we have the opportunity to see God in all creation, whether that is driving across the Golden Gate Bridge, listening to the beautiful voices and sound of Nick Hagelin and Terry Burrell, or even using our modern day devices such as our cell phones Everything that we see in the material world is sacred and divine. It's all God. And how could we talk about God's teachers without including our animals? We can learn so much from our animals. Unconditional love, especially when we're greeted with a wagging tail, even after a scolding. Trust and patience. They know that we will come home to take care of them. They take time for rest, and they take time for play. And they have the ability to be present and savor the moment. Children, animals, and nature all represent being the who they were meant to be. They are a child of God, an animal of God, a creation of God. They know who they are, and they know their function. They are all God-centric, revealing God's true essence, which is anchored in love. No one of us, and this may be hard for us to grasp at times, and maybe this is part of our learning, but no one of us possess any special gift or spiritual knowledge that is not immediately available to each and every one of us. Mother Teresa expresses this in the following quote: "A person consciously filling a vase with water out of union and love with God gives more glory to God than a priest at the altar who is standing there in a state of anger, resentment, or separateness." The choice for love in thought and intention demonstrated is what reveals oneness with God. I'm going to go off script for 1 second here. When I found that quote from Mother Teresa, I think there was someone in mind, and I want to, just like all of you, she came here to celebrate and honor David, and that's my 93-year-old mom who is here with me today. And I don't think there is anyone that goes through her daily routine in life more consciously, more intentionally, and in union with God than Mom. So thank you. We started with asking, who are God's teachers, right? I would say that individuals with titles such as reverends, rabbis, and priests are teachers of God, but we are all God's teachers. We are always teaching and learning by our thoughts and our actions. And unlike the classroom I talked about earlier, there is no hierarchy of more than or less than. There is no authority or there is no control in a God-centered teaching-learning relationship. Our curriculum is life and this human experience. Each one of us is here to learn and teach. And when we make a conscious decision to teach and learn from love, we are gifted with miracles. 6 months ago, SLCA said goodbye to Reverend Dr. David Alt, And next week, we formally welcome Reverend Dr. David Alexander. But today, we want to say thank you and recognize one of God's teachers whom we have shared a loving teaching, learning relationship. Some of us have been fortunate to have known David for the past 8 years here at SLCA, while all of us are fortunate to know him at all. Our encounters with David have not been accidental. They did not happen by chance. We have been the beneficiary of how David has demonstrated being one of God's teachers. He has helped us recognize our own divinity. His belief in us has helped us believe in ourselves. His kindness has shown us we are all worthy of love. He has been present to us, making each one of us feel special. David's intention has always been, and always will be, to see our interest as one with his. David has gifted us with miracles. Our relationship with David will be changing, but it will not be ending. The teaching and learning and the love that has occurred will continue for all of us. Each and every one of us has the opportunity to carry forward the divinity he saw and sees in us. And David, you will carry forward the love and support of a community as you continue being God's teacher in your next expression. And so it is.